Taylor's new album, The Life of a Showgirl, isn't Karma the Lost Album, but what if it is? Sorry, I couldn't resist the reference. If you need more information about what the heck Karma the Lost Album is, be sure to watch this video for a quick explanation. As I explained in this video, I have never met and therefore do not actually know Taylor Swift, and I ultimately think that Taylor herself is the only person who knows the truth about any of this. I am not claiming that the following is verified fact in any way, shape, or form. But oh, how I love noticing patterns and parallels. Last August, I made 2 videos pointing out things I'd noticed with the 2 sub-aesthetics of Reputation, both during the original era and in the more recent months, like snake greens, fire colors like red, orange, and gold. Taylor had mentioned that the Reputation vault tracks would be fire in her Time magazine Person of the Year interview in late fall of 2023. And throughout 2024 and oozing into 2025, we started noticing heavy use of patterns like plaids and hints of snakes in clothing and jewelry. At the time, I proposed that everything might be pointing to Reputation Taylor's version's vault being massive due to the extra year in between albums, which could result in Rep TV being a double album, one disc being the OG tracks, the other being the vault tracks from the Lost era. Then, in September, I caught what seemed like possible references to the 90s and theorized that perhaps the Rep Vault Lost era was going to be a 90s themed era to follow the 80s vibes of 1989. So the plaids, the tapestries, the numerous Vivienne Westwood looks were pointing toward that Karma is the Rep Vault idea. The only things that I thought didn't really fit were the occasional hints of like periwinkle, lilac, purples, and the ever-present smattering of stars. I figured she was hinting at 2 things at once, Rep TV and TS12. But then Taylor was able to buy her masters, best outcome ever, and revealed that she hadn't even re-recorded a quarter of Reputation for a Taylor's version album. And a couple of months later, we found ourselves navigating everything from weirdly timed merch drops to listening parties and hints about August, on top of all the seemingly abandoned snakes and stars and plaids and 90s trends and color palettes from the last year. While a debate raged between the debut TV hopeful and the TS12 truthers, I quietly wondered if our next announcement would be a 12th album consisting of just the vault tracks from the Reputation era with the main color of orange. It would wrap up this first series of her career with a karma-coded 12th album, completing the rainbow of available heart emojis, emptying the vault, and closing the karmic infinity loop of her process of reclaiming her work, allowing her to launch into her 13th album with a clean slate and a fresh new identification system for her albums. Instead of hearts, maybe birthstones perhaps, starting with opals, or maybe symbols such as those ubiquitous stars and other lucky charms. I shared that thought with some of my closest Swiftie friends a few weeks ago, but abandoned it fairly quickly because of the requirement that for a true empty the vault and wrap it all up to happen, debut TV would have to be next, and the vibes were shifting decidedly away from that and toward TS12. In hindsight, maybe I should have trusted my gut more. Fast forward a few weeks, and we of course found ourselves with the announcement of TS12, The Life of a Showgirl, which includes use of the colors orange, pinkish red, green, violet, gold, and silver, along with a burning heart emoji and confirmation from Taylor herself that a lot of the orange elements of eras were in fact Easter eggs for this new album. So that's it, I thought. TS12 is next. But then I noticed bits and pieces of the podcast backdrop, and there was one in particular that I couldn't ignore. This one. And it got my wheels turning. Since last week's announcement, I've seen bits and pieces of a few theories, but I honestly haven't scrolled much. It's possible that others have come up with the same idea that I'm about to present to you, but I haven't seen anyone say what I'm about to say. So after a week of fleshing out my initial thoughts, I want to offer my potential theory on what happened 9 years ago and how it relates to where we are today. And, by the way, after sharing my thoughts with my dear friend Nikki a couple nights ago, she reached out to me last night with a somewhat similar but not identical theory that she is also sharing today. In fact, I think she's already posted her video. So you should definitely go watch her video next if you haven't already seen it, and give her a follow. Okay, is TS12 The Life of a Showgirl Karma? In a roundabout way, I think the answer might be yes. Not the exact songs, not even the name of the album, but rather Taylor's originally intended trajectory for TS6. With the utter success of 1989, Taylor had a monumental task ahead of her. How could she top such a successful album? Taylor had worked with Max Martin and Shellback, although not exclusively, for Red and 1989, and did indeed end up working with them for several tracks on Reputation. So I think it's possible that she originally wanted to do a full album collab with just Max Martin and Shellback, making it as tight and snappy and definitive as humanly possible. An attempt to own her status as a pop star despite the rumblings and grumblings from the haters. Taylor used colors and patterns in 2015-2016 that normally would have signaled what her next album would be. Vibrant fiery tones, berry, pinks, reds, oranges, and golds, greens, even the periwinkle violet color, the Grammy Bob haircut, which she later bleached, and the plaids, the metallics, flapper-esque shift dresses, and chunky boots of Bleachella, a playful progression from 1989's 80s aesthetic into clear nods to the mid-90s. It all seemed to point to TS6. Maybe she planned to release it on October 7th, 2016. Peep this possible egg that Nikki found last night? Maybe she meant to use orange as the main color and for it to have a 90s inspired vibe with a Gilded Age twist. The 90s were sometimes nicknamed the New Gilded Age due to similarities with the 20s. Then 2016, He Who Must Not Be Named, Thank You Amy happened, and she tried to stay on track, but by the summer, things started falling apart, and the timeline wasn't going to work, and by fall, she knew she had to pivot. She left the country, she laid low for a year, and she reworked her plan, keeping some of it, the plaid, the orange and hot pink, the gold and green and Gatsby of it all, but switched the main color to black, the attitude to one of defiance, and the vibe to Snakes and the old Taylor being dead, and the fire being more of a burn it all down attitude instead of a this girl is on fire attitude. The similarities in her street and red carpet fashion between the lead-ups to Reputation and the lead-ups to Showgirl are striking, which explains why so many of us thought Rep TV was coming. Even the design and production of Showgirl are similar to that of Reputation, not only working with Max Martin and Shellback again, but also going so far as to use the same photographers, echoes of poses like the fingers on the face, and settings like the delicate music video hotel, the flapper girl with the feather picks and everything. And if it holds true that there are 12 tracks with no deluxe, bonus, extended edition songs, which I personally believe will be the case because I prefer to believe Taylor when she tells us things, it would also have that in common with Reputation. Reputation was the I'm broken but I'm still here version of her vision for TS6, and it was an utter masterpiece in its own right. Showgirl may very well be a reclaiming of her original 2016 vision, a full circle moment, a healed, confident Taylor's version of TS6, a 2.0 if you will. 6 times 2 is 12 because the math always maths for Taylor. Or, in other words, karma indeed coming back around. If you want more visual details or a way to examine the evidence for yourself, I am making a spreadsheet, surprise, surprise, so stay tuned for my next video where I'll show it to you and go through some of the crazy parallels. What do you think? Is TS12 karma reborn, like a phoenix rising from the ashes? Or do you think that this is totally out in left field? Either opinion is valid. Don't forget to go check out Nikki's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you again as soon as I can get that spreadsheet done. Okay, bye!